Are you cultivating closeness or distance in your marriage? You see, closeness is not a natural consequence of marriage. It takes work. Hear what God has to say in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 24. I love the King James version of this scripture because it has a certain ring to it. It says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave or be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." Now, what that scripture tells us is that there is a process to closeness and intimacy in marriage. We need to leave and cleave before we can become. So there are two key things that I personally take away from this scripture. Firstly, intimacy is a close connection and bond. The scripture talks about cleaving. That old English word cleave has a dual meaning. In this context, it means to firmly join two things together to the point where they become inseparable. Intimacy in marriage means to bond and be closely joined and connected with someone to the point where you cannot separate between the two without causing damage to both. You know, the closest illustration I can think of is from when I was studying architecture in uni. So part of our training was model building. So we had to build models of buildings that we were designing using various materials, so cardboard or tiles or wood, all sorts of things. And there was a glue called super glue, which we used to use, and you absolutely needed to be careful when using it, because if you stuck your fingers to anything with super glue, you would have to part with some of the skin from your fingertips to separate yourself from that object. If you've used super glue before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's what it means to cleave from God's perspective. God says you need to hold fast to your spouse until you become inseparable. Some people leave, so they leave their parents as the scripture directs, but they don't make the effort to cleave. Other people don't want to leave their parents, but they're trying to cleave. Now that's a message for another day. The second thing that I take from this scripture is that intimacy requires effort. We often make the assumption that intimacy is an automatic result of being husband and wife. It is not so. You don't become without taking some steps first. Marriage is a becoming process. We never really arrive. We are constantly in the state of becoming more giving, more loving, more caring, more Christ-like, more considerate, more intimate. We're constantly course correcting towards that vision that God has for our homes and our families. And that requires intentionality and effort. That's what I call having a marital work ethic. So are you prepared to do the work? Because closeness in marriage is built by daily choices. Your relationship will rise or fall to the level of the choices that you make daily. Should I put down my phone and listen actively when you are trying to communicate with me, or should I just attempt to multitask and expect you to make do with my divided attention? Should I seek you out at the end of a busy day to talk and connect with you, or would I rather just vegetate in front of the TV until bedtime? Do I deliberately encourage you with my words, or do I only speak up to criticize you? Do I smile when you enter the room, or ignore you and keep doing what I was doing like you never entered the room? It is little choices like that which determine the level of intimacy in our homes. Intimacy is constructed by moment after moment as we choose to be fully aware and intentional about the daily actions that lead to a lifetime of closeness. So we've got to take deliberate steps to cultivate closeness and intimacy. Smarter decisions lead to better relationships.